Father Kevin and Molly, thank you so much for joining me today. And I wanted to start just by saying, you guys interviewed me regarding being a part of a learning community more than anyone else had. And as you were looking for what to do next as a staff, as a team, what were you looking for? What were some of your concerns? And why did you choose in the end to do the learning community?
Well, we had heard about you through a friend who recommended it. And we did a process of talking to, of course, our staff, our leadership, our parish pastoral council. And it wasn't like an immediate, like, oh yeah, let's do it. But it's like, it's an investment of time and money. And we want to make sure that it was right for our parish, for us. We weren't just doing a program that, we heard about, but we weren't going to get anything from.
And I think we also wanted to make sure that our staff, was like really into it too, because if staff is kind of like, okay, this is just coming from the top, it's not going to work. So I think that was really helpful as well, to have some of those questions answered that the staff had.
Yeah, there's a lot of programs that, the pastor pushes through. And if there's not a buy-in from staff or leadership, lay leadership, it just doesn't work. It's just this fight, no matter how good it is. So we definitely had, everybody was in. They're like, yeah, let's do it. From our pastoral council staff, like, this sounds great. So we wanted to make sure that we had everybody's questions answered. That's why we asked you so many questions.
And if you're watching this right now, you're getting a free leadership teaching on the importance of buy-in. And I'd be happy to do those video calls, interviews, conversations with anybody that wants to know more or wants to involve their staff in the process. I'm sorry, what were you going to say, Molly?
I was just going to say, it is an investment. There's a little sticker shock at the beginning, and it's like, wow, this is, you have to put some money forward, and yet, I think that also creates more buy-in, and that's why we want to make sure that it's a good product, because that's, an investment that we're making, and gratefully we have the resources to do that. But I think that there was another piece to that too, in that direction.
And why did you decide this is a fit for our parish and our staff?
I think it's because you did not have a program set. Say you do A, B, and C, and then you're gonna have a great parish. We kind of recognize that probably every parish feels unique, and we feel like, okay, we've got our own sets of gifts and challenges, and that you were able to say, that's exactly what we want to work on. Like, you bring to us, and then we'll work with that. So it's like, yeah, as opposed to we just got to follow a formula, then life will be good, which of course we know never happens. But to be able to work with us, I guess. Yeah. Molly?
Yeah, and I would say just the fact that we were going to be with other parishes, other churches from around the United States, because, that kind of groupthink that can happen in your own diocese. And we have some really great churches in our diocese, but it's so fun to be able to, look more broadly than that and see what else is out there. So I think that was also a big selling point, I think, for us too.
Yeah, that collaboration aspect and hearing what other parishes are doing, or even what they're struggling with, where you think, oh, we're not the only ones struggling with that, or that they're trying things that maybe you hadn't thought of. What was the overall experience like? I know you've both been to a lot of conferences and seminars and different things. How was this different than those, and what was the experience like for you and your team?
It was good. I think, it was great for our team, actually, just to be together, for one thing, because, we meet, but it's like not that intentionally sometimes. So that was, I think, really a great thing. And then I think we were just excited to kind of see how the process was going to play out. So it was nice to enter in, and the days didn't seem, super long, especially when we were doing it virtual. There's a lot of engagement, and just some really good sessions that everybody, I think, felt, energized by.
Yeah, I think we all came away with kind of a wow, like, holy cow. Not that it was that like strange, but it was just so common sense good. It's like, never thought of that in that approach. And again, kind of like why we do anything or what's behind it. So even like off when we weren't on, we chat with ourselves and like, wow. And wow, that impacts me personally and me as pastor and me and us as a parish, just on so many different levels.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm glad you mentioned that about impacting you personally. One thing that we try to do as we talk about being disciples and making disciples is to give each individual a chance to process the ideas and the information. What does this mean for my faith? What does it mean for me as a disciple making disciples? How were those sessions for you as a team? You know, kind of the faith sharing aspect.
They were good. Just as you said that, John, it just reminded me of that was another aspect of the program is that, we talk a lot about discipleship and, we want to make disciples, but what do we do? Like, how do we do that? It's not just we get into this mindset of, we have our faith formation once a week and then we have mass once a week. It's like, no, we have to go beyond that and we have to challenge folks. And we as a staff have to challenge ourselves, in being disciples. We had to ask that question of us, like, how are we doing at that? And so that's what I really enjoyed too, is the focus toward discipleship.
Yeah. I think we want to put this in, we come from a positive place now. I mean, we went into it not like we had problems to fix. So it was kind of like, oh, we hope we fix this terrible thing. It wasn't like that, but it's like, we feel good about what we're doing, but how can we be better? And just even thinking of like the stuff is like, then I'm like, wow, how can I personally be better? That's good information. I mean, like Molly, I think, we do a good job but it's like, holy cow, there's so much more that I could grow at. I've been a priest for 38 years and I like to think that I'm still learning. And this was just a great way for me to, I don't know, be honest about stuff that I gotta work on just as pastor, as person of faith.
Yeah, how else were you challenged by the process? I know that's a part that we really try to bring to it, is that people are both personally challenged and challenged as teams. How were you challenged through the process and maybe even the strategic planning at the end of the session?
I think one of the things that you had suggested to us is look at the why we do something. And for me, just to look at, well, we do these programs or these services, like why? What is that? And why am I doing it? Just because we did it before, someone's asking me to do it, everybody else does. It's like, what's the thing going deeper in it? I think that's what caught me.
Yeah, I would certainly piggyback off that. And then I would also say that just the, kind of that whole strategic planning piece, looking forward. Because it's great when you're in the bubble with all the other parishes, and then it's like, okay, now we're on our own. And how do we as a group talk about, the importance of what we learned to hang on to that, and then, to move forward. Because of course we all want to do, 20 different things. We have a great staff who is really active. So it's like trying to figure out, how do we be really intentional about the next steps that we take.
Yeah, one thing that we say at Parish Catalyst is you cannot change what you're unwilling to confront. And I saw you and your team be willing to step into some things that maybe had kind of been there for a while, but you didn't know how to approach them, or you hadn't really just gone into that yet. Our mission statement, as you've heard, is to encourage Catholic leaders to think creatively and act courageously, which means that it's not a good fit for some people, for some parishes. What would you say to people that are watching this, that are trying to discern, is this really a good next step for us? What would you say to them? Who is it good for and who's it not good for, maybe?
Wow. I just in other talking to other people around the diocese, just our experience, they're excited about, like, wow, we want to do something like this. But I'm thinking if it's not good if someone, you want canned answers, like let's say we got problem A, now fix it. Okay, no, but it's kind of like we want to go kind of further than that, and it's like, look at how can we be church for the future. We're in a major building project, and we don't want to lose our soul focusing just on the building and fundraising. which, we're going to do. But how can we continue to grow as a parish? How can we continue to foster? So I think it's the idea that you were willing to work with us on that, to say, yeah, okay, we got it. Yeah.
And I would say you really have to have a good group of companions. It's not like one or two people can say, yep, we're doing this and we're excited. And you kind of think in the background, the other five will come along at some point. I think there has to be some good work done on that front end to make sure that people are, to have the best experience. I mean, you can do it, but I think, you really have to all be willing to kind of be willing to challenge your own sense of faith. And then also, gosh, as we look at the church, what is it that we want to create, and have some excitement about that. And be willing to go deep and, ask some of those hard questions and be willing to wrestle with them a little bit. Because that certainly brings out more things that you can create, which is, it gets really exciting, but it's a little bumpy sometimes at the beginning.
You were part of a virtual learning community as opposed to an in-person. What would you say were the benefits of the virtual environment?
Well, I'm not sure if we would have done it if we, quote, only had a choice, or we didn't have the choice, if we had to fly in, just because of time and because of money. It was really an advantage to say, not only was it cheaper, but the whole idea that we could get more people involved. But just realistically, for me to take off, a night before and fly there and work on this stuff and then fly back, it's just, I don't know. I'm not sure if we would have participated. But the whole idea that the idea that you had it all virtual is like, we're in, makes it easier, makes it so much better. I just more people involved.
And I think for people who have families on your staff, it's much more user friendly that way too, just with schedules. And I felt like we could really engage well virtually. I mean, it really, we're kind of in this world now, and I know even with ministry, it feels weird, but I thought it went really well. We still shared, I think as much as we would in person too. I mean, nothing will beat in person, but certainly the next best thing.
Yeah, for people that are concerned about the virtual environment, the interactivity and the Zoom fatigue, what was that like?
Wow, I didn't feel any of that. I think because it's broken up so much.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just only that, but we had our own private time and one-on-one stuff. So it didn't even occur to me about the Zoom fatigue. That's something. I never thought of that.
One thing that you did that quite a few parishes take advantage of is you enlisted me to come to your parish for an on-site workshop for a few days. You wanted to kind of refresh and give some new energy to your parish mission. What was your vision behind that?
Well, at first we had talked about having you come out, John, just to talk to people who are already very involved in the parish, like what we call our leadership, our key people, whether it's people chairing committees, those kinds of things. Then as we thought about it, we said, wow, let's open up to everybody. Like, just the stuff is so solid, because in a sense, everybody in the parish is called to be some kind of role. In a sense, I guess we're all called to be leaders, not just the ones who are currently having it. So, but it kind of came out as far as our goals. We didn't have that planned ahead of time to say, hey, now let's have John come. But as we got into it and looked at what we want to do as a parish, we're saying, it would be really good if we could just, have you come join us and meet with us in person as a parish.
And I think too, it just was a way to get our goals going, so it was a nice, shot in the arm for that. And also just with that investment, making sure that the parish knows that this is what we're doing. Like, we're continuing to work on this. This is something that we're doing. Here's the update. John's a real person. This is legit. That they could share in that excitement, and also hopefully take some of the things we learned and also ask some of those questions, and then come to us and say, hey, why don't we do this? Or could we think about doing that? So I think that was really helpful too. So it's more of a common language among more people.
I love that. Yeah, the common language that people, the vision and mission become a common language among the parishioners. And you went a step further and you streamed it live on YouTube for parishioners that couldn't be there to watch and engage with it, and they could go back and watch it later if they wanted to. How is this different than previous parish missions? When I think of a parish mission, I think of people coming and sitting and listening, and then maybe like coffee and donuts afterwards. How was this different than that? How did it really involve your parishioners more?
I mean, I think the big thing is just seeing the engagement. They got together in groups, sometimes 3, 4, however many. And, for a lot of them, it was like, wow, this is a really great way to get to know people around some really important topics, and have the time and the setting to do that. And people really commented on that. Like, that was just so nice to be able to be together and really engage in some good conversations. So I think that was definitely a high point.
Yeah, I've been involved in a couple other parish missions. I actually have given a couple myself, and they have been more the style of come, here's a long talk, great talk, but then, okay, goodbye. And this was more of like, not the heady stuff, but like what's more practical. And like Molly said, I think it was when we broke up into small groups. And we didn't have the ideal situation because we were actually in our church. We would like to have been downstairs at tables, but because of the COVID restrictions, and we couldn't, get everybody in if they were so far away. So this way they could sit apart if they needed to. It was just when we were, the COVID stuff was lifting type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it worked. We said, get together with people you don't know and answer this question. And the response we got from so many people is that was the talks were good, but that part about here, I get to share, I get to hear, and I didn't think of that before.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that because we put so much emphasis on the talks, the information, almost as if our parishioners are there to be entertained, and what's interesting is, as you said, their favorite moments were connecting with each other. And I don't think we put enough value on that when we create our programs sometimes. And as you said, we were in the church, so they were in pews, but we still were able to get them throughout the evening to circle up every once in a while and have little, not long, like 15-minute conversations about different aspects of their faith. After that, the next day, we did a staff health and harmony workshop, which is always kind of, just as a facilitator, they're always feel kind of tricky going into, because you get a little bit of what the challenges are the staff is facing. And I don't know if you guys felt that way going into it, but how did that feel? What was that like for your staff? And how did it, how maybe were things different afterward than they were before?
Well, I would say luckily, Father Kevin has done a great job of making sure that our staff has, I think we have about 3 or 4 days each year where we have a staff development day. So the plate had kind of been set, we're kind of used to doing things like that, which is, helpful, obviously, because we do get together and have good conversation. And sometimes it's on a serious topic, sometimes it's just fun. But it was good. And I will say just can I share one of the exercises, or is it a secret?
No, that's fine. Sure.
So we had, John had us each sit across from each other and share what it is that we needed from the other staff member, how they could serve us better. And wow, that was pretty powerful, but a really good exercise, I thought. That was one of the ones people really spoke about, and was good. And I think there's been some good follow-up since then, because it was just a good reminder of kind of paying attention to what we all kind of need and the gifts that we have, and how people see us, and I think it's helped us definitely relate better to each other, because I think there's more depth of understanding there. So that was really good.
Mhm. I would concur with that. It was kind of almost like speed dating, where it's just a quick
Yeah.
boom, talk and you move on. What I liked about it is that I was not in charge.
Mhm.
So it was like the fact of saying, okay, John, you take us or you lead this, and to trust you with that, as opposed to, oh, because yeah, I mean, obviously, I want to also uh, be challenged, be deep in my own faith. And so many times when we do things, one of us in the staff will take a turn, like, okay, now let's focus on this or do this. And when you're doing that, it's a different mindset, because you're thinking of the next thing and how long is this going to take? And this way, just to participate was wonderful.
And I will say, as a staff member, it's nice to have Kevin participate, just because
Mhm.
then there is more that mutuality and collegiality. Not that it isn't there, but it just helps when that happens, because I know that he's relaxing more and entering in better.
Yeah, I just did a staff retreat with a parish out in California, and that was really what the pastor commented was, he said, I was able to connect in a meaningful way with every one of my staff members. And it's because I wasn't running things, and I could just enter in with them as a peer and
Yeah.
connect with them and hear that. Yeah, it is, that exercise is called speed dating. It's not the airing of grievances, as some might interpret it. It is,
Yeah.
how can I serve you better, is the question you ask each other in an open, humble way. How can I love my neighbor better, essentially? And to just add to that, the exercises that we teach, both in the learning community and in the on-sites, these are exercises that you can bring back and repeat with your staff and do in other ministries and other programs. We really believe in that old adage in teaching people how to fish, that these are things that are transferable and repeatable throughout the future of the parish in helping grow your staff and your parishioners. Any other thoughts for the just the Parish Catalyst process? For those that are watching, it is such an unusual thing. It's kind of, you've got to experience sometimes to understand it. But any other thoughts for those that are watching that are curious about more?
Well, we're just starting our involvement in it, and it says a lot that I think we're all excited about the next steps,
Mhm.
as opposed to, oh, what, as opposed to, oh, we got to do another one. But it's already, yeah, just how more we're going to be challenged, and that says a lot.
Mhm. Yeah. And I would say, just trust the spirit, and, ask John good questions, and just be ready for some really good, engaging exercises and reflection, because that's really what it is all about. And I like the way it's set up in terms of the time, between different meetings, because it gives you time to work on things and continue to come up with questions, and kind of just have a sounding board, which is a really great thing too. So yeah, looking forward to the next meeting.
And John, I do appreciate your positive approach to this.
Mhm.
So even if something going on, you always take kind of like, well, okay, and let's move forward with that, as opposed to, oh, you're doomed. It's nothing like, like.
Yeah. I also think one of the really great things that kind of ahas for me was when John was presenting at the mission and talked about, who are some companies that have not asked the right questions, and then what happened to them. You talk about like Kodak or Blockbuster Video, and then he put up, how about the Catholic Church? And that was like, ooh. And so I think, coming out of COVID, it's going to be hard for a lot of faith communities. And I think taking this step to try to kind of boost your, the ways in which you do things in your church, like, we need to be asking these questions, because it's not going to be an easy road. And if we don't, we just kind of slip into the same old, and that's just not going to work anymore. So I think it's really important that all churches, Catholic, whoever, really asks some of these questions and puts forward some good intent and planning, and trying to figure out, how do we continue to, develop disciples.
We, as a parish, we typically, as a staff, we'll set up a calendar about what we want to do for the next 12 months. And we've delayed that. And actually later today, we have staff talking about what is our vision for the future. Let's get that out there. Like, why do we do anything? And then let's get that worked on. Then we can start setting calendar. And typically we set the calendar and then try to fit in, why do we do something, kind of squeeze it in or make it work. So we learned that, and that's it'll be exciting what we come up with later today. And that wasn't one of our goals. That was just kind of a byproduct of common sense. Sure, going through the process.
Molly, you mentioned something. I'll just close with this. You mentioned something about all the transition that people are going through right now. And sometimes when I talk to parish leaders about being a part of a learning community, they say, oh, we can't do that right now. We're trying to figure out how to get parishioners back engaged and what we're going to do. And my response is, well, that's exactly why you should do a learning community.
Right.
What would you say to people that have that kind of pushback? Help them understand how this is actually what could help you figure those things out.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to do it anyway. If you're already saying, oh, we got to figure it out, well, then bring in somebody to help you figure it out, because it's going to make a difference. It's going to bring refreshment. It's going to set better, vision for your parish. It's going to take the onus totally. I mean, you'll still have to do things, obviously, but you can rely on Parish Catalyst to kind of help lead you through that. And so, yeah, I think this is the prime time to really, engage in something like Parish Catalyst.
I think most parishes just keep repeating what they've done before, and they'll just do it louder or do it more times, expecting a different result, as opposed to if anybody's watching this and they want more involvement in something. I found it helped me personally get why we're doing this, what's behind getting people involved. So it's a whole different approach for me personally.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for your time and for leadership lessons along the way. Those are some great things that you are doing and modeling that I hope people will pick up on as well. But I look forward to connecting in just a couple months to see where you're at, and we'll go from there. But thank you both for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
You bet.
Great.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.